Okay, hang on for it.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Technology for Good show. This is episode 56. The bit of bad news, bit of good news. Bad news, our usual co-host Chris Kernahan couldn't make it this week, but in good news, we have Angsuman joining us instead. Angsuman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I develop enterprise software, social CRM software, mobile apps, and I have been in technology since 1995, developing in Java and a whole lot of related technologies. Been a software architect for as long as I can remember. That's about it.
And where are you based, Angsuman?
Currently, I started my career from Emeryville, California, San Francisco, and I stayed there for several years. And now I moved back to Kolkata, India, and I've started my business there.
Okay. How different is it running a business in Calcutta versus California?
It is almost 10 times harder running a business in Calcutta than in California. The environment is much more suitable. The infrastructure, the support that you get, the access to the high quality VCs. So, and of course, I have to say, I really hate to say this, but Kolkata, getting a good employees is harder than, say, getting it in Bangalore or Hyderabad or almost any other part of India. So it's kind of harder compared to, it's harder compared to California, anywhere in California or even Bangalore.
And why is Calcutta so much more difficult than other parts of India?
I think part of the reason is because Kolkata was under communist rule for over 30 years, and that kind of changed the working, the mindset of the people is in more ways than I can describe. It's harder. I mean, the same people, if you take them outside Bengal, they are really efficient workers. But within Bengal, maybe it's the climate. I don't know. It's really hard to put a finger because I'm from the same place. And it's just the environment is harder.
Sure, it's interesting because I'm living now in the south of Spain, and the south of Spain was under a fascist regime for 40 years, from the mid 30s to the mid 70s, and there's not the same entrepreneurial spirit here as there is in Ireland, for example, where I come from originally. And I don't know, is that something to do with the fascist regime that was here? Or is it, as you said, the climate, because it's very warm here too, or a combination? I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. It's funny to see the kind of parallels, though, between here and Calcutta that you're talking about.
It is. It is very hot and humid. That's the climate. But it's the people. It's like when I worked in California, when I worked in San Francisco, the standard, or even in Bangalore, it's like I work hard for a day's pay. I do the best I can. I come back home satisfied that I've done the best. Here it's more of your entitlement, what you can get versus what you can do. And, the entrepreneurial spirit that I enjoyed in Bangalore, I enjoyed in San Francisco, in Mountain View, that we really need to inculcate more. There are organizations trying it, but this is from, the ground level reality that I'm seeing for the last decade or so. Wow. That I'm working here.
It's weird, isn't it? It's funny how cultures, they're so different. I mean, Spain and Ireland are not that far apart geographically. I'm not sure about Bangalore and Calcutta, but it's the same country.
Yeah, it is the same country, and it's about an hour's flight. And anywhere in India, you go to Hyderabad, go to Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, and the environment is different. I'm sure it's changing for the better. Now we have a new regime. We'll just wait and see.
Okay. We'll head into the stories, Angsuman, and yes. We've had a quiet week, I have to say. We normally have a good few stories lined up. There are far fewer stories lined up this week. I'm not sure why that is. Were people taking a break in the last couple of weeks? I don't know, but we don't have as many stories as usual. But we'll head into them anyway, and we'll see. We'll start off the usual the usual process with the show is that we do a climate-related story first, and we've two actually, and then we head into the better news stories. And so the first two climate stories that I came across. And we'll just do the two of them reasonably quickly, because it's bad news and nobody wants bad news. But I just do this to set a bit of context. And the first one talks about how this year we've had a record low for Arctic sea ice, and basically you can see the orange line in this graph. Actually, let me make it a bit bigger there. There we go. That's a bit bigger now. So this orange line is the sea ice in the Arctic, and you can see that the line as it comes up here up to the 25th of February, it was slightly above the previous record of 2010 to 2011, but then it dips down below it and it goes to a record low. It has never been that low before. The white line is the average from 1981 to 2010. Of Arctic sea ice. The blue is the previous low, and the orange is this last year. So you can see the record low there. And this is something that has been going on, and every year we're getting new records set, be it for Arctic sea ice or Antarctic or ice loss, or as in the next story, we're talking here about, and I hate these Mashable rollovers that they block all the story. Anyway, what we're talking about here is new records that are going to be set this year, more than likely. This chart is very hard to see, but you've got America over here on the right-hand side, Russia, India, Africa, parts of Europe here, and the other parts of Europe sticking out here on the very right-hand side. And basically what they're saying is that this year we'll have an El Nino. March was the warmest month on record for the globe as a whole, according to the Japanese Meteorological Agency. And some of these agencies use slightly different metrics to calculate it. So NASA didn't find March to be the highest month on record, but it did find that the year to date was the warmest January through March on record. So like I say, the Japanese Meteorological Agency said that March was the warmest March ever. The NASA didn't say so. NASA has slightly different measurements, but they say that January through March, that period was the warmest in its record, edging out 2002, 2010. So basically what we're seeing, through these stories is, and this is a constant in this show, the first one or two stories are always bad news stories, and they're always, I never have a problem finding stories coming out of people like the NOAA or NASA or people like that saying that, okay, yet another record has been broken, be it in ice, be it in drought, be it in wildfires, be it in whatever, and it's all climate related. And basically it's always depressingly bad news. So
yes,
go on.
It seems that even the rise of the ice cover in Antarctica is much less, is way offset by the lowering of the level in Arctic. And overall, it seems a very depressing scenario indeed. And even today, some climatologists are trying to argue that there is no climate change going on.
It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff, and it's every week, as I say. It makes it very hard to actually read these stories every week. I'm going, oh my God, so this is why I try and get those out of the way fast and head on to some of the better news stories. And we have a good few good news stories, thankfully.
Wonderful.
So the first one comes out of Microsoft, and Microsoft have been doing some good stuff, I gotta say, both in terms of software and in terms of sustainability. They dropped the ball for a while around 2010 or so, but they're running with it again, thankfully. And they decided to go carbon neutral a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now. And the way they decided to do it was they decided to roll out internally a carbon price. So for anyone within Microsoft who wanted to do anything, if it had a carbon impact, they had to pay a price for the carbon that they expended. And it's led to a fantastic cultural change within Microsoft, and their carbon footprint went way down. Now they're already fully carbon neutral, and the way they've achieved that is by investing heavily in renewables. By investing heavily in renewables, what I mean is that 80% of the power that they buy comes directly from renewables. So right there, they're doing really good. I think, if I remember correctly, the third largest purchaser of renewable energy in the United States. I think Intel is the first. So they purchase huge amounts of renewable energy, which is fantastic because it ups the demand for renewable energy and leads to more renewable energy being created. It sends a big demand signal. And the other thing they do then is, for the 20% that they're missing out on for their carbon footprint, they buy high quality offsets. Now, offsets are something that, you know, that they can be a bit iffy, and you want to be buying as few of them as possible. You want to be as carbon neutral as possible before buying offsets. But in fairness to Microsoft, they do seem to be getting pretty high quality offsets. And they talk in this article about some of the things they're doing. And one of them is by investing in these high quality, low impact charcoal stoves, which are given out to people in sub-Saharan Africa who would normally have been using stoves which create massive amounts of smoke and are extremely inefficient, so burn large amounts of charcoal, whereas this one is a very energy efficient stove. And I mean, they interview the one of the women who was using it, and she says it's made a huge difference. When she's preparing daily meals, there's less smoke, costs less money, needing just one bag of charcoal, which lasts 2 months instead of the old one, which took 3. And so, you know, you got huge impacts there. And the other project that they refer to is a reforestation project in Indonesia to recreate biodiversity, which has been lost through deforestation. So, and they talk about the impacts of the carbon price within the company and stuff like that. And it's all really good stuff. And, you know, they seem to be doing incredibly well. And just to add on to that, the other really cool story I saw on a similar theme is one which came out just yesterday. Cool. About Apple buying a forest in North Carolina, 2.5 times the size of Manhattan, which, you know, for anyone who's not familiar with Manhattan, it comes to 36,000 acres of private forest. It's going to be sustainably harvested and used for the packaging. So for people who are buying Apple products, the Apple products typically come in paper-based packaging. So Apple have bought this forest, and they're going to use this forest for the packaging, and the forest will be sustainably harvested, which means for every tree they harvest, they will plant at least 2 trees, and they will use that to create all their packaging. So, you know, the packaging will be sourced sustainably. You won't get deforestation occurring as a result of using the packaging. It's all recyclable as well. And one of the interesting things about Apple is that their VP of Environmental Initiatives is a woman called Lisa Jackson. And Lisa Jackson used to work as the head of the American EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And while she was there, she was appointed by President Obama as head of the EPA. Very highly qualified woman, very successful, before she joined the EPA. And then she joined the EPA, and she was quite ambitious in what she was trying to do there. But of course, she was hampered by the politics, by the bipartisan politics in the US, with the Republicans basically trying to stop any kind of environmental initiatives. And it must have been massively frustrating for her. And then Apple was roundly criticized, and rightly so, by Greenpeace for not being green enough. So Tim Cook sat back and thought to himself, well, we're being Greenpeaced here, and that's not good. And there's this woman, Lisa Jackson, who's very good, but she's hampered in her job in the EPA. Why don't I offer her a job working for Apple? she'll earn 2 to 3 times what she's earning as head of the EPA, and she'll actually get to do stuff, and no one will object. So, I think both Apple and Microsoft are showing phenomenal leadership there in their environmental initiatives. It's really heartening to see, and it's when you look at the politics and what's happening in politics, it's really disappointing. And then you see some of the larger companies doing stuff like this, and you kind of go, yeah, big business is really actually helping in these kind of situations.
How is Google doing in this?
Google's doing okay. They're not as good as Apple or Microsoft in terms of renewables, but they're quite good. And Google have been at it a while. Google have been carbon neutral since 2007. So they've been at it. Now, most of that is through offsets. Having said that, Google have invested over $1 billion in renewable projects, and they set up their own Google Power company as well for trading of energy. And they've invested heavily in wind farms, and they have power purchase agreements with wind farms. So they've done a lot of very innovative stuff, which shouldn't be surprising considering it's Google. They've also they've invested through their Google X arm. They've invested in a high altitude wind company formerly called Makani, and this is a company that creates massive kites which fly up and generate I don't know, I can't remember what the most recent ones are rated at, but I want to say they're about 500 kilowatts per kite. So which is pretty significant, and of course at high altitudes the wind is always blowing. It's not nearly as gusty as it is at ground level. So they've invested in them as well. So, but if you're looking for straight numbers, Google's, from their 2013 report, if I remember correctly, the amount of energy that they source from renewables is 37% of their total energy consumption. So 37 comes from renewables, and then the other 63 comes from offsets. So, when you compare it to Microsoft's 80, it's not that impressive, but when you compare it to most other people in the industry, it's very impressive, because IBM reported in 2013 17% from renewables, and they made an announcement about 3 weeks ago that they were going to go from 17% to 20% by 2020. So they were going to increase 3% over 7 years. And you kind of go, oh, guys, you could really be a bit more ambitious than that. It's so,
Yeah.
Go on. Google, to answer your question, Google are okay. They're one of the more innovative, and they've been doing good stuff for quite a while, but they've been kind of sitting on their laurels now for a while, whereas the likes of Apple and Microsoft have really picked up the pace in this stuff.
When I was reading this article on sustainable harvesting that they're doing, immediately I drew a parallel with the stem cell research today. Oh, yeah. And in stem cell research, imagine they applied the same concept of sustainable harvesting to the human embryos. Oh. That would save a whole lot of lives, but that will create some ethical dilemma.
I think massive ethical dilemmas. Stem cell research is already an ethical minefield without introducing more factors into it. But no, I'm a big believer in stem cell research, and I think it's going to provide massive breakthroughs for us in the coming years. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they get out of it.
Absolutely, same here.
Anyway, we'll move on, and I mean, we've been talking about renewables. So there were some cool stories came out of the renewables area in the last week as well, and this one from Tree Hugger shows a chart of, as they say, why solar power will take over the world. This is Tree Hugger, you got to realize, and they can be prone to a bit of exaggeration, sure, particularly with their article titles. Why solar will take over the world might be a little bit hyperbolic. But having said that, when you look at this chart, it's really impressive, because what you've got in orange here is the price of a solar panel per watt of generation. So, and the scale on the left goes from 0 up to $120. And in 1975, it was about $101 per watt. By 1990, it was below 20. In fact, if I come out from there, actually by 1980, it was below 20. So it come down fivefold. And now, in 2015, it's down at 61 cents per watt. So you can see the price of solar has collapsed enormously in the last few years. And at the same time, in blue on the right-hand side of the chart, what you have is the global solar panel installations going from 0 up to 70,000 megawatts. And so you can see that as the price was high, the blue is non-existent behind the orange there. And then around 2000, it starts to become visible. 2005, you've kind of got an inflection point there. Yes. Jumps up to 2010, 2011, there's a bit of a drop. And then after 2012, it's on a bit of a hockey stick again. So, and it keeps going up and up and up. It's you know, it's absolutely fantastic. It's really heartening to see. And you can see, obviously, it's heavily related to price. The other, yes, the other chart there is this one called the Swanson effect, and it's the price of crystalline silicon photovoltaic cells. And I'll actually reduce the size of this here, just so we can try and get the entire graph on the screen. There we go. That's maybe a bit too small.
No, I can see it clearly.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, you can see there the price goes from 76 per watt down to 74 cent per watt. It's not very clear there, and that's to 2013, and it came down lower than that even again. So it's 100 times cheaper in 35 years. So solar's really having its heyday. It's coming into its own in terms of price falling, and consequently the amount of installations going through the roof, as it were. And I mean, you're based now in Calcutta, Angsaman, and we've had the new Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, saying that he wants to have solar rolled out all across India by 2020. It's that figure on the right-hand side of the first chart there, the blue one. If India starts rolling out solar at the scale Narendra Modi wants to roll it out, that high point there at 70,000 megawatts, that'll be dwarfed in 3 or 4 years' time if India comes online.
Absolutely, and I trust this man that he will keep his promise. I think that in the solar industry, the inflection point was when it went below the dollar, and there was a lot of excitement because at that point it started becoming competitive with the existing, the power generation.
Yeah,
and that was there even in India, and that is, I think, where it really started to get a huge amount of traction. And it will come down. It seems to be following the Moore's law.
It does, and to go back to your point about Modi for a second, he has a strong track record already with solar in India. He was what's the term? Is it prime minister? He was prime minister of one of the regions in India before he became prime minister of the country, one of the states.
Yeah. He was the chief minister of Gujarat.
Okay.
Before he became the prime minister.
Okay, so he chief minister in Gujarat, and he rolled out a lot of solar in Gujarat before becoming prime minister and deciding to roll it out countrywide.
Yes. He has been very good in keeping his promises, in industrialization, in modernizing. People in Gujarat, by and large, they are really happy, and we are hoping that we will get to share the happiness in 3 years. It's a sense of excitement. It's a sense of that something good is happening to the country, finally, after 60 years of independence.
Excellent. Because India does burn a lot of coal, and it's you're at kind of, as well, I mentioned inflection point around solar a while ago, but you're also at a bit of an inflection point in terms of a developing economy. So if that heads more towards solar than coal, then it's great. It'll be fantastic. If it goes more the cold direction, then the emissions are going to be troublesome. And we've seen this in China. China went, a few years ahead of you guys in terms of its industrialization, and the massive problems they're having now with pollution. It's scary when you see the air quality ratings in Beijing publicized daily by the American embassy.
Yeah, I mean, it looks uninhabitable, Beijing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to stay in that city.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, I was talking to a guy, I was in Berlin this week at a conference, a utilities conference, and one of the guys I was talking to there lives in Beijing, and he did say that, the really bad days are the ones that get highlighted, and he said it's not always that bad. But on the other hand, he did say that when it gets really bad, they close the windows in his apartment and they turn on the air purifiers. And I'm sitting beside him thinking, air purifiers? I don't have an air purifier in my apartment. It's not something I would even think about having to invest in. So the very fact that he has one says a lot. It's kind of, it's scary. Anyway, we'll go on.
No, go ahead.
I was going to go on to the next story, but if you have something else to add to it, go ahead.
No. Please go ahead.
All right. So the next story I saw is about Google, and it's kind of a change in topic because we're kind of going into mobility space now. And so this one is talking about how Google has updated the Chrome browser for iOS. And I mean, most people who are on iOS would just use the default Safari that's built into the phone or the tablet, whichever it is. But Google's Chrome browser works particularly well on iOS, and I use it quite a lot. One thing I miss actually is not having a Firefox option on iOS. But I saw during the week that Firefox have announced that they're going to roll out an iOS version. Finally, they'd refused to do it for the longest time, but this week they announced it's going to happen. So the latest version of Chrome for iOS now has a notification screen, or it appears on the notification screen, I should say. And in the notification screen, you have an option of creating a new tab or clicking on voice search and then speaking your search term and have it show up in Chrome. And they also have the extensions option as well. So they support extensions. So when you are running Chrome and you go for extensions, you have the option, for example, to use LastPass or 1Password to throw passwords into a sign-up screen. So it's nice because it's always good to have choices in browsers, whether it's on desktop or laptop or mobile or whatever. You and I, Angsaman, were having a discussion before we started the show about Chrome because you were trying to come on to the Hangout in Chrome and it wasn't working. So you switched to Firefox and it worked. And, right there. And I've had the same experience and it's bizarre. I find that the Hangouts work better. Now, maybe this is an OS X thing because you're on a Mac and I'm on a Mac, but definitely on the Mac platform, the Hangout works better in Firefox than in Chrome, which is kind of ironic.
Absolutely. It's nowadays even a lot of the software that I use, it seems, I mean, some of them are very well supported on Chrome, but for some, still Firefox is the better choice. Yeah. And have you noticed how Chrome kind of took the pole position in the browser where, at least in the tech, for the tech people?
Yeah, absolutely.
At one point it was Firefox, then Internet Explorer, and now it's actually, it was always Firefox and then, Internet Explorer and then Firefox for a short period.
That's right.
But then it was Chrome.
Chrome took over, but I think people are getting a bit tired of Chrome now because it's very bloaty. It requires a lot of memory. It doesn't manage the memory well. That was always the problem with Firefox. Firefox used to have terrible memory problems, and that's when people started moving to Chrome. But they've cleaned up Firefox now. It doesn't have those issues anymore. Safari is a brutal memory hog on OS X, at least. It's terrible. It's awful. I tried it for a while and I went running away from it. So for me, on OS X, at least, of the three of those, I find Firefox by far and away the best.
Absolutely. And Chrome had one of these problems because I started using SSD on the Mac. And, when you have like 3-4 GBs left of hard disk,
yep,
the Chrome literally consumes the whole of your hard disk.
Wow.
And I normally have like 30-40 tabs open, but I never face the problem with the Firefox. But Chrome literally kills the OS.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. For me, it was bloating the RAM, but I never looked at the disk space. Wow, that's interesting.
So if you have like 1-2 GB of hard disks left, never try Chrome.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Sticking with mobile, so I saw as well that Android have brought out a way to find your phone. So on iOS, there's been a Find Your Phone app for a long time, and now on Android, you can just ask your phone, type in Find My Phone into a Google search page, and it'll show you where your phone is on the map. You can then, as it says here, you can set it to ring. So if it's under a cushion or behind a couch or something like that, you can find it easily enough just by the sound. So it's there are some caveats, as I say. The phone must have the latest version of the Google app installed, but I think probably most people keep their apps up to date anyway. And the browser must be logged into the same Google account as the phone. So that's, I'd say that's reasonable enough for most people. I mean, I have 2 or 3. I have 3 different Google accounts that I generally have running, but I tend to stick to one for those kinds of reasons. I want a bit of, coordination across devices, and if you start, mixing up your Google accounts, that's going to fall apart very, very quickly.
True. I actually tried this before the show, and I tried searching my phone, which was online and everything. Didn't work. I waited for 5 minutes. It was searching. Maybe I messed with the Google accounts or something, but it wasn't working for me.
Oh dear.
And I have the latest, the latest
Google app
version of the Android, yes, and the Google app also.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, maybe we scratch that one. So, speaking of scratching, though, Google have launched a handwriting app,
Yes.
which is supposed to be able to read your handwriting and turn it into text. Now, that's I like the idea, but I have to say, I have my doubts, frankly, that anyone could read my handwriting, never mind Google. My handwriting is appalling. And part of the reason for that is that I don't write. I know some people still prefer writing, but I've lost kind of the muscle memory for writing. When I bought my first computer in '89, it was partly because we had a we had a project in university, and our head of department insisted that it be handed in on a disk. And this was my first time having this kind of issue come up. So I was very lucky. I had been working the previous 2 summers in the UK, and I got a tax rebate. So on the one hand, I had this check for some money, and on the other hand, I had a need to have a computer. So put the 2 together, got myself my own computer, and was able then to submit the project on a disk. But what it meant was I suddenly figured, well, my writing is not very good, and stuff that's printed out is a lot easier for everyone else to read. So I just started typing everything from then on out. And the only time I pick up a pen and write now is when I am filling out a receipt. When someone wants me to sign a receipt in a restaurant or something like that. And even that I don't do much anymore because I've got a chip and pin card. So I'm normally just punching the pin code into the reader. So I don't know. I see people at conferences still with, you know, tablets and they're writing on the screen, or with these notepads, moleskin notepads. And I don't know, are they being retro chic, or I don't know. I don't understand it. I much prefer a keyboard.
I mean, I almost have forgotten how to write.
Yeah.
And I remember it when I write a check, and that's pretty much when I sign the check, I kind of remember it. Okay, this is how I write it. But then I have seen a couple of places where handwriting is useful, like when I'm trying to design something quickly, and you know, doing it on the computer is kind of cumbersome, then kind of drawing it on the board or writing some stuff. And this concept is not new. They tried to digitize for a long time. I remember buying you know, some device, I'm trying to recollect the name, in a Java 1 conference almost 7-8 years back, and they had this beautiful pen which kind of digitizes everything you like, and you can even draw a piano and you can play that. So, but it didn't fly off, you know.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
I've seen those. There's a kind of a pen which, when you're writing on paper, it can it can follow the movement and convert that to digital. But I don't think it does OCR on the digital. I think it just converts it into an electronic JPEG of what you've written. True. I think.
There was this HP though. I had this HP touchpad from around 2000, I think, and it actually
an iPac. Yeah. An iPac. Okay. Was it an iPac?
No. HP Pavilion something. Yeah, it's somewhere lying around.
You still have it.
Yeah, I do.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I had an iPac back around that time, a compact iPac, and there was some kind of handwriting recognition. And the Newton had it as well back in the day, back in the 80s, wasn't it, at the Newton or whenever? And yeah, they were never great.
No.
This pen I got actually at an event from Schneider Electric. It's and you see a lot of them around now. It's specifically designed. It's got this little black thing at the end for people who like writing on tablets. So you can either have the pen end with the ink and write on paper, or reverse it and use the kind of black rubber thing for writing on tablets. And
does it shoot a laser beam?
It doesn't shoot a laser beam. No, it doesn't. I've seen those as well, though, the laser pointer ones. I do talks at conferences reasonably often, and I would never ever use a laser pointer. They're ridiculous because no one can ever see them. They're invisible, and if you can see them, your hand has got a bit of a shake always, and you know you've got that little dot bouncing around on the screen. It looks absolutely ridiculous. I remember a conference I organized in Cork back in 2000, and it was either 2005 or 2006. And one of the speakers that I had organized for the conference, and I'll tell you his name in a second, he had the most bizarre request of any speaker that I ever had come to a conference. And what it was he wanted a fishing rod.
A fishing rod?
Fishing rod? He said, yeah, a fishing rod. I said, okay, that's weird. Any particular reason? He said, yes. He said, I don't like using laser pointers. He said, but if I have a long stick, like a fishing rod, I can use that to point, and people can follow the line up to where I'm pointing to. And he said it's a much more effective pointer than a laser pointer because, you know, people never see the dot, and like I said earlier, it's always bouncing around the place. But if you have a fishing rod, he said it works perfectly. So I got on the fishing rod. And it was one of these things where I get the request the night before, and he's on first thing in the morning. But I managed to get one, and the guy's name is Hans Rosling. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's from originally from Sweden, from the Karolinska Institute. There, he's a professor of global health. He does some absolutely amazing talks. He's been on TED a number of times, talking about population growth and talking about global health statistics and things like that. If you haven't come across him, I would strongly advise going to the TED site and typing in his name, Hans Rosling. He is a brilliant speaker, really well worth the 20 minutes or so of the talks. You will learn a huge amount from him, and he's very entertaining as well, and a lovely guy. But anyway, I've gotten way off on a tangent as I'm wont to do. We'll move on. We're still with mobile, and there's a couple of interesting stories on mobile this week, apart from the ones that we've just covered. So I thought this one was interesting. The Pew Research Center talking about cell phones in Africa being communication lifelines, and there's the story in itself is quite good, because they've done a large survey in several sub-Saharan African countries, and you can see the surge in ownership in this chart here between 2002 and 2014, and it's and they break it down quite well between male and female, between age groups and things like that, and also on the common uses of cell phones in Africa. And the most common use is sending text messages, then taking pictures, and then making and receiving payments. And that's particular to a number of the countries. Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania in particular, mobile banking is very common because they've got the infrastructure there for it. But I mean, basically, I'm not going to go into detail. The link is in the show notes. It's a 2-page thing. You can see it's very long. This is just page 1 of the 2 pages. One thing to take away: landline penetration has stayed flat at near 0. So there's almost no landlines in Africa, in residential Africa at least, and it's nearly all mobile, and the amount of mobile has gone through the roof. So that's the first of 2 stories on this, and the second one, it's a really interesting story, and it's got the provocative title: "Have you tried cow dung? Smartphones helping Kenyan farmers text their way out of trouble." And basically what it is it talks about a number of different services in Africa where they have call centers, basically, and people can type in issues and SMS the issues to a call center, and they get an answer back from people who are experts, agricultural experts and people like that, who will send them back in real-time answers to the questions they send in. And they've gotten they have experts on all kinds of things. They talk here about Mburu, an agricultural expert, recommends the use of a trap or poison for moles, and if that doesn't work, try burning dry cow dung in the mole hole or pouring in 1-week-old cow urine. I mean, this is not the kind of stuff that you expect to be getting from a call center that you send questions to. I'm guessing, certainly not in Spain anyway. I'm not sure about in Calcutta.
I have a very good experience on this. We have one of our clients who sells hair care products, and
okay, I'm not.
He has set up a helpline. I mean, we manage the helpline.
Okay.
And almost every second we get SMS. I have this hair problem, I have this skin problem, problems at other places that I wouldn't like to mention. But essentially, there's a constant stream of requests, and they had to set up a big call center to address their questions, and in turn, also, to sell their products. And it seems a very successful strategy that is working here. And they are getting an enormous amount of inbound leads through this message all throughout the state and even throughout the country.
Interesting. I mean, that hair care is. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. I don't have much hair left to take care of, but
mostly snake oil. It's mostly snake oil. I'm not even sure that it really works. But you should listen to their call center. You apply this twice a day. I says, yeah, it's working. Can I apply 3 times a day? Sure, go ahead. Wow. Apply yet another expensive product.
Oh
so yeah, it's kind of a scam, I think.
Okay.
And looking at the Africa, though, there was another article I was reading. There are, the mobile payment of money is actually very popular there.
Yeah.
Only big challenge the app developers are facing there is, if you are accepting money from the web, it's a 6-step process. If you are trying to accept money from the mobile also, there are multiple providers and there is no unified standard. And that is probably hindering most the growth of indigenous developers in Africa, in the countries that I was looking, like Uganda and all those places. But this is growing and this is there to stay. Mobile app payment is something really big flying in Africa.
It is, and it's empowering commerce there, which is fantastic. I mean, we're looking in sub-Saharan Africa now at a mobile penetration north of 80%, which is huge. I mean, that's comparable with North America, which is phenomenal. And I mean, they talk in the story there about the agricultural one, about measurable increases in yield, in crop yield, as a result of these, of access to information. And that's the kind of thing. It's the access to information, be it health information, be it agricultural information, education itself, and also as you said, the mobile commerce applications. These massive advances for peoples are life changing. We think about the needs of people. Now, I'm not going to presume to know the needs of people in sub-Saharan Africa, but at least they need commerce and they need access to information. And those are two very basic needs. I mean, another basic need is water, and that's being addressed in other ways. But if you can make these kind of things readily available and cheap, and that's a crucial part of it as well, is cheap. And these kind of services they're talking about are cheap, or they wouldn't be able to get access to them. When they've got cheap access to information and trustworthy, trustable,
trustworthy.
Ways of transacting using the mobile phone and sending the money and being sure that the money is going to arrive at its destination. It's life changing. It really is.
It is. And that same thing is being used in India also to transfer money to remote parts of the country. I was recently looking into it, but it didn't pick up as well as it did in Africa. It's an enormous opportunity also, and the country is growing like anything. Sub-Saharan Africa is it has a huge potential for growth, and it is growing in a big way.
Yeah, it is. I'm curious. I haven't seen any data around Central and South America. I'm wondering what the story is there. I must look into that.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't either.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on, and we're going into the kind of healthcare area, and the big buzz in the last couple of weeks has been the launch of the Apple Watch, and I think it's a bit overblown, to be honest. I don't have any plans to get one. For me, it delivers too little and costs too much. It looks very nice, sure, yes. But like I say, it's too expensive and doesn't give enough. Now, having said that, because it's got an open, reasonably open platform for development, we're seeing a lot of apps come to the fore. So it's becoming more useful. But that's not going to change my mind on getting it anyway, not for the moment. I'll wait till version 3 or 4, I'd say. But anyway, what we're seeing in this one is 13 new apps for the watch being announced in the last week alone. And they're everything from ones which tell people when to take medication, through tracking ones, and it goes through them all here. And there are ones, nurse call, things like that as well. Ones for tracking, obviously, calories and all that kind of stuff. There's a huge variety of them here, 13 different ones, as I said. So I can see how these will be useful to some people. Yeah. If there's any kind of doubt I have, I guess it's around the fact that I don't see the watch having a big enough penetration. I know they've taken in orders of somewhere 2 to 3 million, but that's globally. And 2 to 3 million globally is quite a small percentage. I think really for some of these things to have a decent impact, they would need to be, you know, at kind of the Android level of penetration. And I'm not talking about Android Wear, I'm talking about Android, the mobile operating system. Because there's a very small percentage of people who are going to be able to go out and buy one of these watches for themselves. Certainly, I mean, I'm reasonably well off by global standards, and there's no way I'm going to consider, you know, spending 400 euro on a watch or more that's going to be out of date in 12 months and has, you know, not that huge amount of functionality. So
it looks like a bad investment to me also. I mean, I'd be waiting for version 3 when at least the battery lasts for a week.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a watch, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I have this watch, you know, Casio watch. It's pretty old, and it is solar powered. I have to never change the battery.
Fantastic.
And it is working for over a decade. That's how I expect my watch to be. To charge them every day.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fantastic. I stopped wearing a watch. I gotta say, I stopped wearing a watch about 15 years ago, I guess, when I got my first mobile phone, which had a watch built into it, or a clock built into it. But I started again. Started wearing a Fitbit, a kind of Fitbit Force. I started wearing it in December 13 when I had an operation on my ankle, and I wanted to track my recovery. And it's been really good. I really enjoy it. It tracks steps, it tracks sleep. It's also a watch, so I can get the time. And there's a number of other things. And it hooks up with the phone and it hooks up with the computer, so I can track all that kind of information. And I can dump the information from the phone into Apple Health as well using an external app. And there's all kinds of things you can do with it. And so that made me appreciate the idea of smartwatches. But like I say, with the Apple Watch, it's 2 to 3 times the price of the Fitbit, does marginally more, and like I said, will be out of date in 12 months. It's, as you say, not a good investment. And the battery life on this is about a week. So I plug it in via USB, leave it in for half an hour, and that's it, done for a week. And I have the USB here on my desk, so some morning I'll get a little notification on my phone. It'll actually send me an email and a notification on the phone to say your battery's getting low. So when I get the email, I'm sitting at my desk. I just plug it in, and if I'm going on a trip somewhere, I'll plug it in for half an hour before I go, and I'm good. I never have to think about it. It's great.
Absolutely. I mean, when I thought about a smartwatch, my dream was, speaking to the watch, beam me up, Scotty. And Pebble does it. So, I really don't think I need a smartwatch anymore. But, come to think of it, it's nowadays, when you have the Bluetooth headset, we really have technology much better than speaking to your watch.
Yeah, I think smartwatches will be a thing. I do, but I think Apple just I don't know if they a change in focus that they're kind of saying to hell with it. We'll just go for the people with way too much money to give a damn, or what? I just don't know. They've aimed quite high with this one, and higher than most people are going to go to, I'd say.
I have a prediction. I think in like a couple of years' time, the phone itself will move to the watch. The phone itself may become obsolete. And it will be the smartwatch, which has a full-fledged operating system with the full capability and a reasonable life. And I think it's a better form factor than using a phone.
Yeah. It is.
Ultimately, you can use a Bluetooth headset, and you just don't need to carry around your phone. It's on your hand, and it's easier to see the time on a watch than on a smartphone.
What you're missing, I guess, with that, and the only thing you're missing with that is the screen size. So I've got a large format screen size. And for browsing, it's fantastic. It really is.
3D hologram. The Star Trek. the original Star Trek or any of them.
And you know, that's not that unlikely in time. I mean, when we look back at the phones that we had 10 years ago versus now, you know, and you predict forward from that, and the technologies are increasing at an exponential rate all the time.
Yes.
So no, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if, as you say, you know, we had watches in 10 years' time which have the capability of these devices and had potential of holograms or you know, or projections for instead of a screen. Yeah, no, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
And while we are predicting, I mean, I would predict that they might be powered by, you know, the energy from the body itself. And there are several
or
ways
like
to
your
do it.
Casio watch that could be solar, because
Yeah.
I mean we've talked already about the decreasing price of solar, but what we didn't mention is also the increase in efficiency. So we could have watches which are solar powered, and they'd be far more than watches. They'd be truly smart watches.
Yeah. I mean, a good watch should give me health statistics, like you're saying, you know, it tells you about your blood sugar, maybe your blood pressure, you know, the health diagnostics.
Yeah.
Sends the data to the doctor when you are in trouble, in addition to doing the regular functions of a watch. I mean, that should be the future.
Yeah. Oh, I've no doubt that'll come. I've no doubt that'll come. There'll be data privacy issues, but I mean, most of that'll be easily solved. And you just have, you know, you just take, okay, this person can see this person can see this. In the event of this, contact this person and this person, and
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, we'll keep going, and we're sticking to healthcare because IBM have announced a couple of agreements with Apple, Johnson & Johnson, and Medtronic. And some of this has to do with Apple's ResearchKit and Apple's HealthKit. And the ResearchKit and HealthKit are the health. So that the HealthKit is the health that's built into the iPhone, the health app that's built into it, and the developers' front end for it. The ResearchKit is the one that allows developers to create applications for researchers, for medical research, to go on the iPhone. So both really useful, and IBM want to be the back end of these applications. So they're talking to Apple about that, and they already have a very strong partnership in mobile development, Apple and IBM. So I've no doubt that will happen. Johnson & Johnson make knee and hip implants, and they want to use IBM's Watson to create a concierge service for patients for knee surgery. And Medtronic make heart devices and diabetes products, and they want to use Watson as kind of an Internet of Things around the medical gadgets. So IBM wants to be the plumbing, I guess, for all of these health applications, and not just these. I'm sure they'll sign deals with other organizations as well. They already have strong ties with other organizations like Sloan Kettering and people like that. So IBM are making a strong play for the health arena here, using their AI engine Watson to be both the data store and also to be the diagnostician for people who have any kind of medical illness.
Yes. They have been in this medical industry for a long time, I know, at least for about a decade. They tried also in bioinformatics and in biotechnology. So IBM is heavily invested. We can expect to see some good come out of this new announcements.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of ResearchKit was announced at the same event, and it was a surprise. It was announced at the same event where they announced the watch. Okay. And they've now, it was announced then, but it wasn't made generally available. And now they've gone ahead and have made the ResearchKit tools for iOS 8 available to medical researchers. So they did this on Tuesday this week. They made it available, so anyone now wanting to make apps for doctors and scientists to gather the accurate information from people's phones, they now have the ResearchKit tools set available to them to do that. So again, another nice advance in the medical arena. coming out of Apple. And in fairness to Apple on this one, they were quite good, because they didn't just develop ResearchKit and make it available as they've done now. They've also open sourced it, or they said they're going to open source it, so it should be also available for Android as well, if people take it on and port it over to Android. So if it's available on iOS and Android, it could be really, really interesting. I wrote an article on ResearchKit there a few weeks back on GreenMonk, and one of the cool things that I saw almost immediately was they had 5 pilot projects, and one of them was around, I think it was the asthma one. They had a number of different ones on different medical topics. One of them was asthma, and I think it was the asthma one, or was it Parkinson's? No, it was Parkinson's. It was the Parkinson's one. Sorry, I'm mistaken. And the researcher in the Parkinson's one said that any time in the past they tried to sign up people for medical trials for Parkinson's, they'd never gotten a trial larger than 1,000 people. And he said in the first 6 hours since the announcement of ResearchKit, they'd gotten over 7,000 people signed up. And you know, it's passive data collection using your iOS device, and the collection of data that's possible from that, and the medical results that will come out of that are just enormous. It's going to be, particularly, as I say, if they roll it out in Android as well, it's going to change medical research forever. It really will, because now it'll be possible to get massive tests of people, get people to sign up to do tests, and like I say, it's passive, so you know, yes. There's no big involvement, and suddenly you can track a person's progress or lack of progress. You can tie it into other activities they're doing, and you start to get a huge amount of insight into what can cause illnesses, or how they proceed, or what might be affecting them. Things that are impossible to do with somebody visiting the doctor once every month.
Absolutely. Clinical trials would be much more effective and, you know, much more accurate. We know why a drug is failing. What are the other factors that are coming into play? Because otherwise, you know, any clinical test, there is always a chance of huge errors. And that's why you see the drugs which are already FDA approved, after several years, they are being withdrawn, because the test couldn't properly identify, in spite of following all the procedure and norms.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. There'll be far more data available now to analyze. It's going to be.
And now we have the technology to analyze this big amount of data and correlate.
Yeah. It's got to be fascinating. I love all this, because we're constantly seeing all this new fascinating stuff that's going to change everything. It's going to be great.
The future is looking brighter.
It is. We're moving into transportation now, and I saw a couple of interesting transportation stories. I'm going to skip through them a little quickly because we're over the hour. But so this first one talks about a truck, a super truck. It's a prototype, but it's boosted the efficiency of trucks by 115%, which is pretty impressive. And they did it by doing a couple of things. So you can see from the photograph of the truck that the air intake there has been, I won't say sealed over, but it's been made a lot more aerodynamic. You can see the flows of the truck are a lot more aerodynamic. It's got skirting along the sides, which makes it more aerodynamic. Basically, it's been made a lot more aerodynamic is point number one. Point number two is they put solar panels on the roof. And one of the big reasons for the solar panels is to help power the aircon in the truck, so that won't affect the fuel efficiency. And the third thing they do is they do heat capture from the exhaust, and they pipe the heat back in and use that to drive the truck as well. So almost like a turbocharger. So it makes the truck, it ends up the truck being 115% more fuel efficient, which is phenomenal. And considering the amount of trucks that are on the road and how old a lot of that fleet is and how inefficient it is, the savings you get from that are going to be significant. And you can see here the numbers. Some of these semi-trucks average between 70 and 160,000 kilometers per year. So, you know, that increase in efficiency over 160,000 kilometers a year is going to be significant. And the other story from transportation, slightly different, is how General Motors are using simulators to simulate crashes to help A, build safer cars, B, avoid waste from trashing hundreds of cars before they get a model out the door, and C, just to make better cars at the end of the day, to produce cars that are safer, because they can now analyze almost every aspect on every single device in the car in software first, and then when they have finally tweaked it to the ultimate in software, then they go out and start slamming the prototype cars into a wall. But they've modeled it all first in software, which is something that they've only started to be able to do properly in the last couple of years, as they've achieved the level of computation required to model all this on screen. So I'm sure, I mean, the story is in Wired and it's about GM doing it, but I'm sure that GM are far from being the only company that are doing it, because, you know, the amount of cost savings alone you get from not having to slam hundreds of prototypes into a wall is going to be huge.
It is a complex problem they are solving. There are so many variables in this.
Yeah.
Many dynamics of failure. Please continue.
Anyway, we're getting better cars as a result, so that's pretty cool. Finally, and we're going on to cities now, and we have two stories about cities and making cities better. And the first is a very straightforward one, and it's about the city of Paris. And Paris have rolled out a $160 million plan to boost cycling in the city. And one of the problems that Paris has is around pollution. And there was a couple of times in the last few weeks where the pollution was so bad that they forcibly halved the traffic in the city by only allowing cars with odd number plates or even number plates to drive. You just switch days and it says, you know, okay, today it's even numbered cars, tomorrow it's odd number cars. But what they want to do instead of doing that, I mean, that's okay, that works to a certain extent. They want to, they've offered drivers $11,000 if they trade in an old diesel for an electric car. And that's a nice idea. That's a really nice idea. And diesels are the ones that cause a bigger problem in terms of pollution, in terms of particulates, more than anything else. But as well as that, they're going and they've come up with a plan to make Paris the cycling capital of the world by 2020, which is an ambitious goal. They're going to roll out a network of bike lanes of up to 870 miles, some of that by making existing bike lanes two-way, bidirectional, and they're going to drop speed limits on many streets to 18 miles per hour, creating 10,000 bike parking spaces and financial incentives for those buying electric and conventional bikes. So, you know, they're really going to town on it, and it seems great. Where I'm living here in Seville, it's really, really bike friendly, and a lot of this has been rolled out in Seville already. And if you do any searches on bike friendly cities, Seville always comes out in the top 10. The Nordic countries always take the lead in this, but Seville already has bidirectional bike lanes, and also the bike lanes in Seville are actually physically separated from the roads, so they're very, very safe. It's you know, for a car to try and hit a cyclist, they'd have to mount a curb to try and hit the cyclist. So it's very, very difficult. They're extremely, extremely safe. So it's cool. But I'm delighted to see Paris, which is a much larger city, chasing this down as well. And it'll be great for the residents of Paris. But what I also saw about cities, and this is one, Angsaman, where you might be able to jump in even more so, because this story is about an Indian city becoming a smart city. And the story is about we talked about Narendra Modi earlier, the Prime Minister, and he's mentioned this. He's pushing for a more urbanized India, and they want 100 smart cities to be built by 2022, which is just around the corner. It's what is it now? We're 15, so 7 years. 100 smart cities in 7 years is pretty ambitious. And the first smart city is known as the Gujarat International Finance Tech City, located in how do I pronounce this one?
Gandhinagar.
Gandhinagar.
Yeah.
Okay. In the western state of Gujarat, and they're hoping to they're anticipating attracting private investment and modernizing services, and they're going to be addressing water, electricity, health, transportation, Wi-Fi, garbage collection, and sewerage. This is one, Angsuman, where you might be able to shed a bit more expertise on this, knowing India considerably better than I do. 2022, 100 smart cities, is that doable, do you think?
It is doable because India has a lot of resources, a lot of capabilities. All we need was a good person at the top, and a good honest person at the top. We have that person. He has the right intentions. He's sending out all the right signals. If anyone can do it in the world, Mr. Modi can. I'm pretty sure about him.
Good.
And he has already done an exemplary job in his state of Gujarat. And if you look at Gujarat, the state of the transportation, state of industry is much better than most parts of India. So I think, yes, he can do it. I mean, it's a tall order. It's a lot of things needs to be done. But you have to understand, I mean, a lot of infrastructure is there in the country. There is a lot of technology that is there in the country. And it's a matter of the right will and direction. I mean, all it takes is one good person at the top. And that's who we have today.
Fantastic. And creating 100 smart cities, I mean, that's a real win-win in terms of development, in terms of job creation, in terms of investment, in terms of subsequently the smart cities having reduced energy and emissions footprints as well. So it's an all-round fantastic project. And you're saying it's quite likely to happen given it's Modi's leading it. That's
the thing is, he has to win. He has to win another term before 2022. Right?
When are the next elections?
It was in 14, so it should be 19, 5 years, right?
Oh, okay.
And he has to win another term, and if he can do it, I'm pretty sure it will be completed. Excellent. That is the biggest challenge. That is the biggest challenge because it's a big country with multiple cultures and a lot of factors operate. I mean, even if a person is working to the maximum efficiency, doesn't mean he will get elected in the next term.
And is he popular?
Well, yeah, he is popular. He got a thumping victory in the last election. I mean, he got it's a very good majority. Alone, his party got a very good majority. And I think it was all around the country voted for Modi. The opposition is really weak at this time.
Okay.
But there are other factors. I mean, I'll probably not discuss it on a tech show.
Okay. It's true. We're getting off topic again. I'm a bit likely to do that from time to time, I'm afraid. Okay, that was the last story, so we'll call it a show. There won't be a show next week because it is the week of the Feria de Abril here in Seville. So I will be at the Feria de Abril next week, and I shall be dancing sevillanas and eating tapas and generally having a good time. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time with another show. Angsuman, thank you for joining in at short notice. It was great, much appreciated. Thanks for your time, and thanks for everyone who's watching for your time and interest as well. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time.